the first most significant thing for the businesses and future investors too is the new Investor Council that was formed. This council is chaired by the Prime Minister. It includes the leaders of the major business associations in the country, as well as the EBRD, who sponsored the council, and other IFIs on a rotating basis. We had our first meeting last week, and I believe that this is going to be a very strategic means of direct communication with the highest levels of the government for businesses. And the council is in place to discuss current issues. We discussed some last week. We discussed some very tough issues with the government, but it's also a place that will talk about strategic objectives, such as making Georgia a more attractive place to invest, and how we can work together to do that. So overall, I think one of the things that businesses have been asking for is better communication with the government, and this, with the higher levels of the government. With the Prime Minister chairing, his economic team of ministers is also in the council, and I think this will provide an excellent means of improving public-private sector dialogue. We are also in AmCham excited about Georgia's participation in the new Silk Road and what they're doing. For example, this Silk Road Forum that took place here a month ago or so. The prospects of what Georgia can gain through the work they're trying to do with Asia, certainly if there becomes an FTA with Asia that we can combine with the FTA with the EU, this potentially provides a lot of opportunities for bringing companies into Georgia to do soft repackaging and warehousing and for the transit and logistics along the Silk Road. I think that the biggest problems our members are having, and it's not just American companies, it's just in the business. Our membership is made up of businesses from all over, actually, and I think that the two biggest complaints, if you want to say, are court injunctions, which is where the court is able to freeze your assets based on another party making a claim against you, and the problem has been that even on relatively small claims, very large assets are frozen, and it really cripples a company's ability to function. Unfortunately, based on the legislation, this is absolutely legal. This is legislation that has existed for many years, and at AmCham we believe that there has to be changes to the statutes, the legislative changes to fix this. We're working right now with an association of law firms to put forward a draft. We also raised this at the Investor Council meeting, and we were pleased with the fact that the Prime Minister agreed that this had to be fixed and we should fix it quickly. So we're working on a draft. We're setting up a small working group under the Investor Council also to help the government to stay up to date on what's going on, and we hope to see it go to Parliament before too long, because this is a really big problem. The other big problem is implementations with tax audit. Really, it's with the audit in the first instance. Most of the problems that arise eventually are sorted out through the appeals process in the Ministry of Finance, but that takes a lot of time, and it's quite costly for businesses and financial resources and human resources, that you need to dedicate to that. So we think it is extremely important that the government sort of give new directions to the tax assessors, for example. We also have raised this with the Prime Minister and the Investor Council, and we've agreed that we're going to have a special meeting in December just to speak about these issues. We need the business association sides. We need to prepare our information, statistical data on how many companies are actually having these problems, and what are the problems, and so on. And then we're going to talk about what needs to be done. AmCham's position is that there probably needs to be some kind of technical assistance and reform of the audit process. We hope that we can convince the government to do that, because I feel like obviously always the best advertisers for investing in a country are the people that have already done so and tell you that it's a good place to be. And I think that of the companies that are in Washington and in Brussels and different places that are upset or complaining, the ones that are doing that, it's all because of different tax audits. I think, in AmCham we've had a very constructive dialogue with the government. We have been frustrated at times with, for example, legislation coming out and being pushed through too quickly when there hasn't been proper time for civil dialogue, with the business associations and civil society. This happened to be another thing we discussed at the Investor Council, that this has to be improved, and it's also a requirement of the EU, for their association agreement. When they're passing laws, there needs to be a consultative dialogue. And so, yes, I think it can be improved, certainly. I think there's some important steps right now going on to do that, but it's very early. And this Investor Council, for example, just began. And we'll see, the follow-through and how successful it is. So far, we're happy with it. The biggest problems that our members had, we had about 5 members that had we have over 180 members right now, companies, and we had 5 that were having relatively large problems with tax audits. And 4 of those have been solved because of meetings with the government and discussions, and they came to settlement agreements. Which I think is very good. 1 is still ongoing, and now it's at the court level, and we'll see how that one turns out. Some of these cases, it's more. In AmCham we don't believe that it's a matter of corruption it's just a matter of competency and having enough people and the right people, and also what instructions are given to the tax assessors. So. It's a fixable problem. I wish that we could move Georgia closer to the United States. That would certainly make it easier. But since we can't fix the distance problem, which I think is the main reason you don't see more U.S. businesses here, it's just too far away, and in most investors' mind, the market here is small. So I think that Georgia obviously has to continue on its westernization agenda. It has to make sure that it's seen as a democratic, transparent society, that its values are really stemmed in free market economy principles, and I think we have to work together, the private sector, the public sector, to promote Georgia more. Georgia is a regional hub, and with its trade agreements with the EU, but also with the countries in the region, it makes sense to position Georgia as a regional hub. Perhaps more needs to be done with some of our neighboring countries so that they honor those trade agreements the way that Georgia does. But it's mostly about staying on the course that it's set and doing more to promote itself in the West, I believe. And promote its achievements and its strategic placement, and really make the economic case. It's not just about politics. I think Georgia would do itself a favor if all the parties, all the political parties, we have some fear going into the coming year, or some, not fear, but nervousness coming into the election year. Georgia, no one does Georgia a favor when they go out into the press and internationally and destroy the country when they're trying to destroy each other. So we hope that we don't see that too much in the election year. It's really important to promote what Georgia has to offer economically and geographically, we feel like, to attract not only U.S. investment, but also from the EU and Asia. Obviously I have no control over it or nothing to do with it. I'm just someone that supports it very much and represent AmCham that supports it very much. Realistically, I don't think that we can expect an actual FTA with the United States for several years, or a couple of years at least. I would like to see, and we've written an article that recently appeared in the Financial, and after it was first run in the Hill in DC and then the Financial. We support it. We think it's very important, and it would be a tangible thing that, a bilateral thing that the U.S. could do to show appreciation for the steps Georgia has made. If it was up to me, Georgia would be a member of the EU and NATO tomorrow. But since it's not, look, I don't think that, for example, this Membership Action Plan, MAP, and NATO, I don't think that's a good idea for Georgia because of Russia's obvious response. We've seen that in 2008 when they were afraid that Georgia was getting close to MAP. I hope that someday soon, but again, it's just my opinion, I wish that NATO would just recognize Georgia as a member, skipping the MAP process, which, as I understand, there's no requirement for MAP. It's just the way they usually do things. So if Georgia's ever going to be a member of NATO, as far as I can see, this would be the only way it could work.